Today's podcast is how to identify and remove hidden toxins in your daily environment. So, pretty excited about the topic. This is a part two of what we've covered previously last week. And let me introduce my co-host, Tim Daniels.
Yeah, thank you, Breck. Glad to be here with you as well. We're going to miss the third part of our triumvirate, Dr. Bob, our brain researcher who's out at a conference this week. But he asked us to carry on for him, and so we will. It's always a pleasure to be here with you as our community wellness expert and to focus on that. And then I'm Tim Daniels. I work as a wellness plan manager. Think of that like a general contractor for your wellness. And then I have a specialization in technology post-electromagnetic field therapy, which is good for healing, wellness, and performance. But as today, it's our pleasure to really dive in here with you again on the topic of the toxins, a very important topic. And I also want to talk about, as we do that, it is important for everyone to take advantage of and understand how to work this on the toxins area. But also there are some very vulnerable populations out there that we really need to be aware of and take care of, Breck, from a toxin standpoint. And that includes young children, because their immune systems haven't formed, their organs haven't really gotten to the place where they can do a lot of capacity, and then the amount of food and other thing they intake is higher from a body weight ratio than the rest of us. So you really have to watch out what happens with them. Also, you've got the elderly, and there's kind of the opposite. Many times their immune system has now gone into reverse. It's not as strong as it used to be. They have built up accumulation of toxins over time, so you don't want to really add anything more to their burden if you can. And then the third are just people who have chronic things that have affected their immune system as well. So we always want to be cognizant of those as and they take special care as you work with them on that one, right? And I know you'll put into the notes as well, so I refer to this through the link to our site so they can see last week's podcast, which is a link into this one. As we mentioned last week, we really went into the types of toxins, their potential impacts on you, and those effects. Today, we want to talk now with helping you take some action on that. We want to talk to you about how do you minimize those toxins, your exposure to them. Next week, we'll go into, now some of them are going to get through to you anyway, so what can you use to rid your body of from those? But in doing so today, we're going to talk to a little bit identifying the source of toxins in your environment. And that's 3 environments you really want to look at on that. That's your home, that's your workplace to the extent that you can, and your overall community on that. So I'll start with that portion. And then in your home, you want to look at air, water, contents, and structure. What do I mean by the structure? That's like the paint, the paint you have on there. You want to look around for crack. Paint is not just a lead issue from the old days of that, although if you've got a home built or an apartment that's built before 1978, you do want to look at that. But paint itself, especially as we talk about the vulnerable populations, if that's peeling, one, that could those little pills can get in and be ingested by a child. Number 2, however, those peelings are a way to let moisture in. So then that way you can have mold growing, you want to be aware of. So when you're looking at your home, those are the things you want to look at. As we mentioned, air, water, contents, structure. Contents. So that gets into things even such as carpets. As I really started looking into this a few years ago and said, why would I look at carpets? But then it starts making sense. There are things like flame retardants that are used on carpets and things of that nature, stain resistance things. So you really want to look and see. And so what do you look at that on your furniture, on your carpets and things of that nature? It's what's the label, what's the manufacturers if you have them. You can go to certain sites if you know the brand that you have. Look those up and understand what's going on in that environment. Furniture itself has formaldehyde, so and other things. So same thing. You want to look at that. Then your air. There's things where they call them volatile organic compounds. Also found volatile organic compounds. That's the formaldehyde. That's even things like you can find in nail polish, and so you want to check your air for that. How do you do that? There are home test kits you can buy for that for yourself, and you can send them off to have professional assessments made on them. So that's good. That's good enough if you're doing it for yourself. If you've got some building issues, other legal issues, you might want to hire a professional to do that. But that's the type of thing you want to do. And then there are water testing things you can do, because you even want to test your water, test your tap water, see what's in there. So you can buy home test kits for that as well. You can send them off, things of that nature. So you look at that, the thing, and then you want to get on a schedule for that. You know, and we don't want to be burdensome here, Breck. But so that's why I said, but if you can work these things into your daily routine, make them part of your overall life, and you plan for them, like we talk about a lot of things to do, then it's not a burden on you. So you want to map this out. You want to do a full check of that house or apartment for a year. There are monthly checks you want to do on things such as your sinks and in the bathrooms and things of that nature. There are seasonal checks as the seasons change. For those of us who, you're in Phoenix, Breck, you only have 2 seasons. Hot and very hot, right? So maybe it's twice a year for you, but others of us 4 times a year. Are your windows working correctly? What's the ventilation in there? Things of that nature. So I don't want to, and you can, my email is tim@wellnesswaveclub.com. We'll get that in the chat later. I don't want to take up so much time going into the weeds on this. So therefore, if you want like that home checklist to take a look at, feel free to email me and request what's that home checklist. And so, but you got to have it on a set up your schedule for when you do it. You want to see how you look through those various 3 things. I'll put in the chat later on some resources you can look out to for product safety. So we'll talk a little bit about that as well as you will. Because what I didn't go into there is you also want to look at, what are you using for cleaning? What are you, things of that nature. So you'll talk to some of that. But let's go on quickly here to workplace. So let's assume you're an employee versus an employer. And so in your workplace, what can you do? Because that's also a place where you're potentially exposed to toxins. So therefore, you should be asking, you should ask, look at the OSHA standards for your particular industry so you're familiar with them. Number 2, it's keep your eyes open and be aware and say something. We got in that policy where people were worried about terrorists. It was see something, say something. It should be the same thing for toxins in your environment. If you see that ventilation isn't working in your area, say something. If you see paint cracking in some area, say something like that. So be aware, say something, understand your rights, understand the safety standards so you can put those forward in your workplace. In the community, that's where you want to stay. You'll find yourself some websites that monitor air quality and water quality in the community. Get yourself on some RSS feeds and really look at the sources of that so you stay abreast of that. Advocate for, make sure you get involved. If it's that you're leaning, I would suggest you advocate getting involved in some of the community things about how do you keep your community clean and things of that nature. And so those are the things, Breck. I could do, and we could do a whole day on that, but I don't want to drag out on that part. We've got a lot of things else to cover here. So part of what we want to cover now, I'll turn over to you. Is so now you've got those exposures, those areas. So we talked about what's some of the things you should do in that regard.
Yeah, absolutely. And last week, I talked about, the air pollution and basically the 3 things: the particle matter that can be from industrial or exhaust or anything like that, ozone, inversions, and then talked about carbon monoxide. So if we focus on air quality in the home, the very first number 1 for me is definitely the ventilation, right? You've got to have proper ventilation because that goes back to the carbon monoxide. You all need to make sure you have a detector in place too, just as important as a smoke detector. You need the carbon dioxide or the NO2 sensor as well, because proper ventilation is part of that, right? If you don't have good ventilation, that's where you can trap the carbon dioxide. So the other thing goes along with ventilation here in, where you're using either a heating system, which very, very rarely kicks on here in Arizona, but we do use our air conditioning quite a bit, right? So the AC units, make sure that you're changing those filters out, getting clean filters in, and that's part of the ventilation. And as far as your indoor air purification, Obviously there's air filtration systems. Tim and I talked about this a little bit earlier in our show prep about what each of us use. And I actually am wearing a little personal one right on me right now that is a little ionizer. I travel with this when I go on airplanes and what have you. Not only do I protect my skin against pathogens, I wear a little personal ionizer. So it's basically sending out a little electrical storm that's zapping anything in the air and dropping it to the ground. And so I use that as well as a home unit to clean the air. So ionizers are great, filtration, also taking the particles out of the air. What I like about the ionizers is that it actually kills the pathogens. So, and will also clean a surface too. If you leave the ionizer out, it'll actually help sanitize surfaces around your home as well. Um, the we could get into and tell you which ones that we all use. Yeah, Tim.
Yeah, so you cued me right there, so full disclosure, this is a very good one. It's called Pure Cleanse, but full disclosure, my wife works there, and that's part of the reason I like it, but that's how I got introduced to it. And also a close friend is the chairman of that company. But so that's not the only reason I use it. I use it because it's fantastic. It's Pure Cleanse. You can get to the size it can clean, certainly maintain an apartment. Another size, it can maintain your own home. It has a dual combination that I encourage people to look at. One is that sort of HEPA-like thing where you pull in the air and it cleans the air. And then as you talked about the ionization, it's got the ionization that goes out and kills on the surfaces, the bacteria and the viruses and things of that nature. So so addresses things two ways. And the nice combination of very advanced technology on that. So it's called
Yep.
Pure Cleanse, PURACLENZ on that one. I encourage people to take a look at that for them.
Yeah. And the one I use is the Bolero Air and Surface Pro. And Bolero is has some pretty cool backing, with NASA doing some development with it. And one of the reps is actually on today. Scott Lampier is where I got my air purifiers from him. Let's also look at houseplants too. You talk about doing things, as naturally as possible. Houseplants help clean your air, right?
Right.
So you've got, some really popular ones that are pretty hardy are your spider plants and snake plants. And they're actually studies showing that they help clean household air as well. So that's what, the topics I wanted to talk about for air purification. When you're ready, I've got a whole thing I want to talk about on your cleaning products, because all of
Yeah,
those are chemical based.
go right ahead. Go right ahead, Breck.
All right. So yeah, it's pretty interesting that most of our cleaning supplies are they're all chemical based. They're Clorox or alcohol or some other chemical that is supposed to be sanitizing, which is very, very harmful to humans and pets, right? If you get too much exposure. And there's pretty interesting information about superbugs and how, bugs mutate, right? That's why you have to get an updated flu shot, because that flu virus kind of mutates a little bit each year, and the same one that you got 2 years ago won't work this coming flu season because of that mutation. Well, these superbugs have learned how to eat Clorox. Can you believe that? They're using it as a food source. So not only are you thinking that you're protecting your house by putting the chemical down, you're actually feeding some of the superbugs now. So I like other remedies for that. The do-it-yourself kind of cleaning stuff that can be done is vinegar, baking soda, lemon juice is a good antiseptic. But let me take just a second and tell you about vinegar. This is an amazing natural thing that you can use. And I even ingest a little bit of it here and there just to kind of help with reflux. You think, man, that's really acidic. why would that help with acid reflux? Well, you got to have a good balance, and so apple cider vinegar diluted. Don't drink it straight, but a little dilution in there. But that'll actually help balance out the acid in your digestive tract. But let me tell you about the sanitization of vinegar alone, or just even white vinegar. Um, had been a few years back. My daughter got a new puppy, and we told her we want the puppy in the kennel at night. Well, she, heard the puppy whining, and so of course the puppy ended up in bed with her. And not just one night. We found out she was bringing the puppy into her bed every night. Well, that puppy was peeing all over on her mattress. And it started to just get the worst smell, and it had all that bacteria in there. And we were about to throw the mattress out. And I said, let me try just one thing. So I put the mattress out on the back patio, and I took like a gallon of white vinegar and I just poured it all over where I saw the stain. A couple of days later, not only was the stain gone, the odor was gone, all the bacteria had been completely eliminated, and we were able to continue using that mattress. So a really great disinfectant.
Right.
You probably have some stories too of using your own do-it-yourself.
Yeah, but nothing like that, Breck. But I do say it was my wife who actually taught me about the vinegar, and a nice little 50% water. I think we use distilled water and 50% distilled water, 50% vinegar. And we'll use that to clean the stove tops or our cutting boards and things of that nature. So it's good disinfectant. You mentioned baking, the baking soda. I actually, use that for harder stains on the stove and things of that nature. But also I will use that to clean my pots and pans a little bit if things are sticky, that. And then a unusual, I think, somewhat less known one is, what do you do for furniture polish is something that's natural. And that you can use a little diluted kind of olive oil. So diluted olive oil is very natural, and that you can ingest as well to help yourself. A little diluted olive oil is good for cleaning, cleaning furniture and things like that as well.
Yeah, that's a new one. I didn't know that about the olive oil. That's really cool.
Yeah.
There's other eco-friendly products out there. There's someone that I know quite well and have been on a lot of networking events with, who represents a company that that does all natural cleaning products. But one of the ones that I really really like is uh, killing pathogens physically rather than chemically. And the system that I use for that is a product called MyShield, and again, get that from my friend Scott Lampier that's here. So Zitrosil. So this is one of the cleaning products here. It's got Zitrosil in it, but it kills pathogens physically rather than chemically, creating a covalent bond. And the surface cleaners actually work for a long time. The EPA and will tell you that they last for 30 days, but you can literally have sanitation for a lot longer than that, 45 days, 60 days or whatever. So pretty cool. You still have to do your daily cleaning, but that covalent bond will actually create little tiny carbon shards that are literally, they're like 30,000 times smaller than a human hair, that will pierce the pathogen and pierce the cell of the pathogen, and then a positively charged nitrogen molecule will burn it up, so it doesn't have the opportunity to even mutate. Really cool technology called MyShield, and you can get that at Scott. If you want to put your link in the chat, you're welcome to do that. But germsrx.com is where you can get all of those products, and I'll put that in the show notes too for everybody that's on social media.
Sure. So, and part of what we do here, we do we think we do a pretty good job ourselves of vetting what we use, so we like to put that in there. But secondly, part of our whole effort with WellWaveNOW is to recognize those providers out there, and whether they be places like this product, or whether, as we get into some things later on, and some things, upcoming shows we have going on, podcasts with some doctors and things of that nature who are very, very innovative and handling like lifestyle changes for immune diseases. is we want to raise the visibility of those individuals and those offerings to help impact as much as we can out there the wellness of the U.S. And, a little aside on that, as I was going through some testing, medical testing here the past few months, Breck, and I would go to I had tons of things that I had biopsies, MRIs, CTs running around. Luckily, God brought me along on that. But one of the things that I noticed out there as I went in this, that I think is relevant to this, is every single one of those places, Breck, was packed. Now, maybe it was just an epidemic of diagnostic things like me, but I got to believe that a large percentage of those people were ill. And so therefore, anything we can do to kind of reduce that, that's what wellness is about as opposed to health. It's preventative, it's performance area, it's long-term. And so anything that we can do that's innovative out there that people can research and do some checking on and bring to their attention, we like to do as well. I just wanted to make sure, I think more so today than we have in the past, we've talked about a number of different products. So I just wanted to bring that out and really stress on why we do that in general. Okay.
Yeah, appreciate that. And that, it's obviously, if it's something that we believe in or we personally use ourselves, then we want to make sure other people are aware of the benefits too. Just like the story about the vinegar. Maybe somebody hasn't tried to disinfect something with vinegar before. Well, hey, it really does work, and so do the products that we talked about today with the MyShield.
And I see one of our audience smiling a little bit. Armand, maybe we'll bring him on later, but I smile. But Armand is a guy who is I think he's of an advanced age relatively, and I don't remember the exact age, but he puts it in his advertisement because he's still built like Arnold Schwarzenegger in his 20s. And I just say Armand just doesn't worry about all that. He uses arm strength to kill everything out there.
Exactly.
But one of the things I think he probably does, and we got to talk a little bit about, is also so we covered what do you check for in in your home, in your community a little bit, and at work. What I'd also say at work, so we just got on the cleaning thing I should also mention is advocate at work that they use green cleaning products. If you're an employee there, or if you're an owner that rents space in a place, advocate that those cleaning products used are green to help yourself and help your employees and things of that nature. Okay.
Yep.
But is also the intake. So we talked about look at the home, look at the workplace, look at the communities. How do you reduce things in the air, in the water, in the home, and what do you use for cleaning? But now, how about minimizing what you do for what you intake for that portion?
Yeah, and this kind of goes along also with the with air quality, right? Avoid the synthetic fragrances. So there's a lot of candles and air fresheners that are not your friend. Those are toxic. A lot of those. You want to make sure that they're definitely synthetic free, that they're natural, the essential oils, rather than it being some synthetic air freshener that can really have some bad issues, not just with your respiratory, but you can also get other heavy metals and other things. We talked a little bit about heavy metals last week too. Just posted our joke about that, but.
So says the intake of the air is very important. There's intake of food. Now, so people are often, know about now organic versus pesticide used food. But what I think just a couple pointers on that. One, they usually are more expensive, but the trade-off on that for your health, for yourself, and for if you've got somebody vulnerable in your home, the kid, the immune system, the elderly, it may also be worth it. But number three, even those on some of that fruit and vegetables, and there's a whole thing, again, you can go out on the internet and look at what I'm about to say, how to do it. But it's often not thought of this way, is that even if you have some organic fruit and vegetables, those should still be washed. I slipped into a Nebraska pronunciation, Breck, there. You didn't catch me. I put an R in the wash. So I had to take that back out. And it's the wash some of those vegetables that way. because in transportation they get exposed. You don't know with the farming how much distance between the field that is organic versus one that has pesticide and carrion in the airs can be used. So you still need to do some level of washing in there. Now, some people advocate for some of the fruit that you do a vinegar soak, but I don't advocate that's required. But just a good rinsing, and for some fruit and vegetables, use a nice brush on it. But that's key. But also, I do talk about whether it's the organic or whether it's non-organic, there are certain ways of cooking that you want to be aware of and look at for yourself. Especially on the vegetables, look at the steaming of them. The steaming keeps the nutrients in, stops the exposure from happening on that. Boiling is okay, but that some of your nutrients leak out that way. So you also want to look at those degrees of on your vegetables, from steaming to boiling to sauteing, what those do, and understand those as to how they change the chemical release, the chemical compounds themselves, and what they do. Same thing on the meat side. There are things, grilling over gas is one thing, grilling over charcoal is another. There's some thought that if you do too much of that, it can be carcinogenic on the meat. But that's up for debate. Do your research, make an informed judgment on that as well. And then look at organic meat versus non-organic meat, and which ones use add hormones and which ones don't. There's always the cost trade-off versus your health. And I'm not one that gets over obsessive, but if I can work in, I may not eat all organic meat, but yeah, if I eat some into it, I can reduce my exposure. I may not eat all organic fruits and vegetables, but I can work some into it. I can reduce my exposure. So that's kind of my fill on that. So.
We should also talk about, what you're cooking your food in, right? Because you can get some cookware toxins too if you're not careful. A lot of the anti-stick pans may not be all that great for you, so you need to be aware of that. Avoid aluminum. Aluminum's not a good cookware, but stainless steel or your cast iron. Remember the old cast iron skillet that you never put in the dishwasher because that ruins it, and then you have to re-season it and everything. Yeah, it's way safer than something that may have a non-stick coating on it. Ceramic is okay though. So so far the ceramic pans are testing okay, but some of those that have I don't want to, it may not even be the brand, but a Teflon type nonstick, you know what I'm talking about. The stuff that can scratch with a metal spatula.
Right.
You don't want that stuff coming off in your food.
That's right, nonstick. That's right. And when the nonstick starts to fade on that, for lack of a better term, that's when you really want to make sure that if you are using them, that you don't continue to use those for the exposure into the food on that.
Yeah.
Okay. So now I would throw that into the lifestyle change, and we also often advocate lifestyle changes for a lot of things, right? What do you do for exercise? H does exercise on that portion. Moderation of alcohol intake, moderation of non-water intake, things of that nature. Those are all lifestyle changes. In this regard, anything else that you want to point out from a lifestyle impact, Breck?
Yeah, so we kind of covered a little bit about water, right? But we did some shout outs about air, but I don't know that I have any recommendations for water filtration. A lot of the houses out here in Phoenix have some kind of a reverse osmosis or something like that, just because we have really, really hard water here in the desert. Do you have any?
The other thing I would say, I will say, you may have picked up for me a little bit. I am a moderation guy, and I don't like to go too far one way or the other, and it's reduce, not necessarily eliminate everything. So I get into this because I had several discussions with my wife here recently, because she's the one that started using plastic containers to store food, but now she got an enlightenment. And so now I live and I'm adopting that enlightenment. So how do you store food? So because of the microplastics that people are they're rightly concerned. I'm finding those, I've seen that they're finding microplastics and delicate organs in the body for lack of, for not wanting to come say too explicitly, and what's that's doing to doing to people and other things. So use of those plastic containers, be cautious of and change that. Don't heat your food, don't in the microwave, especially in plastic containers. Don't store them otherwise in the plastic containers. So minimize that. Minimize the amount of plastic you use around the house, because those disposables then go into the whole environmental cycle, and that's where they're finding microplastics around the world and in soil, and there you get that bioaccumulation and biomagnification we talked about last time. With the biomagnification being is it gets in at the lower level in the plant level, and then now it's in you. It gets into your seafood, and then it builds up. So that, to me, that use of plastics for storage, for microwaving, and in general is a key lifestyle change that people should be aware of, and do what they can in that area.
So, Tim, what about, bringing your leftovers home in the styrofoam and just throwing that styrofoam thing in the microwave? You do that, right? Is that what you're? Maybe not a good idea to
Not a good thing.
reheat your leftovers in the styrofoam container.
That's right. Very good.
Yeah, good.
We've got a comment here that says dishwasher pods is another one that recently learned about, I guess.
Okay. Very good.
But now the other thing I would mention, and this is one, where I go, this goes in that whole electromagnetic field frequencies we talk about often. And on the PEMF I talked about, I didn't explain that this time. That's pulse electromagnetic frequency or field therapy. And I am an advocate of that. I do believe it works. But there's also the other, I know it works. The other side of that, people are concerned about other types of EMS, the Wi-Fi, the high wires, what's emitted from your TV, what's emitted from your microwave. That's the one, that I'm kind of on the fence on as to how much damage there is on there. Although we saw where France has put some regulations in place for kids of X age, and Russia as well, limitations on it. So I say be cautious. So I take a cautious approach on that. Don't expose myself to any more of those than I have to. And so part of that, when I talk about in the lifestyle way is changes, is do that as you're sleeping, right? Don't sleep with your phone next to your head. Don't put, if you've got an alarm clock, don't even put that too close to you. Keep those things. I know it's tough on the alarm clock that's plugged in. It's not battery, but keep it 6 feet away from you. Keep your phone 6 feet away from you, things of that nature. Don't, and shut, if you can shut your Wi-Fi off, the why be exposed to it 24 hours a day. But if you do and have that high exposure, that's where I do like the PEMF side of it, because it's also been shown to help with cellular. What you're concerned about with those EMFs is damaging things at the cellular level, of things of that nature. And so what PEMF can do, it can help address that. It can help repair things at the cellular level. It can help move things out of the body, including some of the residue of EMFs. And so I do advocate, looking at that. Another reason to look at bringing PEMF into your life.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. And we've gone through the first half hour of the discussion part. The one other really basic thing that I want to mention doesn't get enough attention, I think, and that's just simple hand washing, right? Always wash your hands before meals, and that's just a pretty standard practice that you should have learned when you were a little kid. And because you don't know what you've picked up along the way, and one of my family thinks I'm OCD, but even going to a movie theater, I'll always go in and wash my hands before, because I know I'm going to eat some popcorn or something. But yeah, that's it may be OCD, or it may just be really smart on my part that I wash my hands before I eat or put them close to my mouth.
Well, one thing along those lines, I may be with you a little bit on the OCD, because during the pandemic, the COVID pandemic, I found a nice little natural hand sanitizer and in a little form, pump form, not aerosol form, that I actually carry that around in my car. So if I go into certain places and I'm touching doorknobs, so I've kept that habit. If I'm touching doorknobs, if I go to my gym and I work out in my gym and I'm touching all the equipment, before I get into my car, before a hand goes to my mouth, before I touch the steering wheel, I reach in there and I'm good.
Before you rub your eye or anything. So I do have a personal story that I do have to share, and I'm not super proud of it, being as OCD. But when I was traveling like regularly, all the time I was traveling, I kind of had I just got into the habit of grabbing a tissue. Like if I was in the restroom or whatever, I would just take a tissue, and then I would use that tissue to open the door and then throw the tissue away. And I thought that was just pretty, common sense to try to keep your hands clean. This is before I found the Zitrasil product, that Scott introduced me to. And so I was traveling a lot, and I was just on automatic pilot. My wife caught me using a tissue to open our own bathroom door, and boy, she was not happy about that. You don't think I keep a clean house? I'm like, oh, I'm sorry, it was just automatic pilot that I would grab a tissue, but you have just as many germs at home as you do away as well. So
Absolutely. And and in the bathroom, unfortunately, when you flush that toilet, unless you close the lid, things come up in the bathroom there too. So I'm with you there as well, Brooke. I kind of find myself when after I've just washed my hands in the restroom to use a little something to open that bathroom knob as I walk out of there. So,
yeah. Well, I appreciate everybody being here today. We want to open it up for questions. And so those that are on social media, please go to the Facebook group, Healthcare Disruptors, WellWaveNOW, and please post your questions there. For anyone that is here with us live on the recording on Zoom, please put your questions in the chat or come off mute and raise your hand. We'll call on you. But yeah, I want to open it up for any discussion at this point.
yeah, let's as we wait to see if there's anything else that comes up from a question standpoint. I wish the attendee who had talked about the dishwasher pods, wish they had come on to kind of clarify that, but I see they've departed. So, but I'm gonna, Armand, why don't you come on? I've seen you smiling and nodding your head. So tell us whether or not I open myself up all the time to take criticism
Criticism.
one way or
I
another.
do.
So
I
tell
do
us.
know Dr. Marana, so I'll follow up with her on the dishwasher pods, and
All
so
right, great. So Armand, come on. One, tell us what your thoughts, comments, things of that nature, and then you
Well,
can also tell us since we know what we kind of vetted what you do. At the end of that, if you also want to comment, your interest in wellness and your role in it, feel free to do so.
well, I think you guys are spot on with everything you went over. People aren't really aware of these things. There is a committee called Environmental Working Group, also known as EWG. You can go there, and they have a lot of reviews on products that they scrutinize and can give you better insight on, are you using a product that kind of fits what you want to have happen. But the more natural we can keep everything, obviously, the better, because it just works. I'm
yep.
a big fan of filtration of water, though. I mean, the water system is, you're going to get, if you're doing the bottled water, you're still getting microplastics. And if you leave it in the car too long and the sun gets on it, it's going to leach in. And people don't really think about that much. They just want to make sure they're staying hydrated. So you want to have a better container, in my opinion, like a Yeti cup or something that if the sun's beating on it, it's not going to really affect the water as is. So that'd be one thing. But also just have filtered water. Now, when you have reverse osmosis, you're taking all of the elements out. So then you want to have something like real salt, Redmond's real salt, or something that is, again, all natural, but put some minerals back into the water, or have an electrolyte type of packet that has some minerals in it, so that you kind of keep everything working. But if you don't get enough minerals, they don't get absorbed well, you're going to go to the bathroom more often because you're flushing. And that also takes more, it's not good for your system. If you're flushing, you're not replenishing because it starts to affect everything. But and the other thing with water is it's a natural toxin. So as you're drinking quality water, you're flushing out the toxins. So I'm a big fan on that. And then everything you're talking about with the environment is, to me, is spot on. And you just need to not take things for granted and then see where you can improve things, because it does make a difference. These things add up over time, because we're at this point in time, we're getting hit with so much stuff that's just
Yeah.
initial thoughts on everything.
Yeah, no, appreciate that. We could do a whole segment just on proper, minerals and
Oh
vitamins,
yeah. Yeah.
because you think about, a cattle farmer, they know more about diet than dietitians when it
Well, they got a
comes to,
lot on this. Yeah, they got a lot to invested in it. So
yeah,
you got the vitamins and minerals, and they're staying healthy. They don't get any illnesses. I mean, yeah, it's important. You're talking
yeah.
about $1,500. It goes right down the drain.
Exactly. I mean, we could do a whole weight loss segment on just making sure you're getting the proper minerals in your diet, because when you have those, then you're satisfied. When you're lacking something, that's where the cravings come from. That's where you want to eat everything in sight, because you're lacking something in your diet.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks, Armand. Yep,
Yeah.
and we hit on that microplastic quite a bit, but I guess I didn't articulate some of the downsides this time. I think we touched upon it last week, but people with those microplastics, one of the things it does, it can cause hormone imbalances, and those hormone imbalances just throw out all the function in your body, opening it up to the dysfunction, opening it up to disease and things of that nature. And so
Well,
that's
it mimics estrogen. So
right.
that's the other thing. Glyphosate, which you get from food, mimics estrogen too, and that's estrogen is a huge problem for females, especially. So anything you can do that doesn't mimic estrogen or cause it to rise is going to be a plus. But like if you have too much, I did an experiment with cottage cheese. I had it for 6 months. I had the full fat cottage cheese, and my estrogen more than tripled by taking. I had some every day for 6 months. I just did that experiment, and it's like, wow. So people don't really think about those things, but
Right.
when you get into the hormones and phytoestrogen, the things that start getting into your system, and you don't know it, you don't realize it, you don't feel it, and you're like, hey, my estrogen's up. You have to check those kind of things. Anyway.
Hey, Dr. Morena is here. If you want to come off mute and tell us what your findings were about the dishwasher pods, I'd be very curious to know.
You guys hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. Just to clarify my comment, I've heard, I'm no expert on this, but I've heard that detergent pods are another source of microplastics, as well as laundry detergent ones, because they're covered, like they're wrapped right in that plastic film. And I guess, because they're coated in what's called PVA, it dissolves in the water, and then it's not biodegradable, it's not safe, and so it ends up on your dishes that you eat off of and on your clothes. So
Yep.
that's what I've heard.
So that brings up another question about the little capsules that medications come in. Are those safe, or is that something similar that we need to be aware of?
I don't know. I haven't looked into it, but good question.
That's going to have to, Breck, you have to look at that
Scary,
one.
scary drug
That's
facts.
right. Decide whether or not it's a scary drug fact or not.
Yep.
All right.
Well, on the capsule thing, though, I think they're maybe the capsules. You want to make sure that you're getting vegetable stearate and not magnesium stearate, because a lot of people they'll put the magnesium stearate in there, and that builds up in your system. So you got to read the labels pretty thoroughly on that and check the supplement companies. It's cheaper to use magnesium stearate versus vegetable, but it's not good for you. And for people who don't realize that magnesium stearate is basically used for the machines. It has nothing to do with you. They use it to keep the coating, the things that won't clog up with the magnesium stearate. That's why they use it.
All right. And so for our other guests and participants, Armand's getting into his area of expertise there a little bit that Breck and I are familiar with, which is supplementation, what's the right supplementation, and here what forms and what healthy forms to take them in. And then Dr. Marina, back to you a little bit. So why did the dishwasher pods come to your attention? What were you doing? What were you looking at?
I actually have a friend who's been researching a lot on pollutants and toxins. And, we've been joking amongst friends that he's kind of down that rabbit hole now, that it's really hard to come out of, because he started with plastic containers. And now he's been inquiring like, hey, have you guys tried making your own sunscreen? So he's just all about like DIY of, not just cleaning solutions, but sunscreens and soaps and all sorts of things. And so I think it came up in one of those conversations, what about dishwasher pods? And I've also seen some news articles on dishwasher pods. So yeah, I thought I'd bring that up in case you heard something as well.
And so that's a interesting fact or statement there. I think we should indeed look at that from the dishwashing pods and the residue on that one. I do know from, in the laundry detergent portion, I've got a colleague who makes an all natural kind of cleaning pod, reusable pod, for some of that very reason. It's natural to put in there.
Yeah.
Good stuff. Well, other questions or comments? I've got the pathogen killer expert here, and he's been quiet and he's bashful today. Scott, if you wanted to come off mute and say anything.
Well, I just appreciate the get together of people voicing their experiences and their expertise and researching and experimenting and trying to make sure that they're as healthy as they can be. The products that we do are all water-based and FDA approved, and we just do it differently than using toxic chemicals. And so we can kill germs physically and not chemically. So
tell real quick about the study that was done at the University of Arizona that mirrored, what the effect would be on COVID.
Sure. The U of A did a study of having the feline virus that they use that mimics the COVID-19, and they did a wash test that after 4 hours, they could not measure any virus whatsoever. So they give it a full log pass for 4 hours, and that's what so it's actually lasting longer than 4 hours on your skin. The nanotechnology that we have. It's just that the FDA lets us only say it'll work up to 4 hours, because there's a couple of variants on actually what they're doing abrasive wise, and whether it's work and you start sloughing skin cells after a period of time too. So to get something instead of lasting 20 seconds like your alcohol-based hand sanitizer is, because once the active ingredient, which is the alcohol, dries, there's no more germ killing going on. There's no more benefit to anything there. And so comparing 20 seconds to 4 hours is what most people think is a pretty good deal. And the products are roughly 98% water. So that's the delivery system, so to speak.
Yeah, and what I heard you say is that some people are more flaky than others. Yeah, we flake ourselves faster than others. So
this is true. So that's the hand sanitizer. See if we can't get all on the same page and be cheerleaders for each other.
Yeah, thanks, Scott. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Scott. Appreciate it. And so thank all of our participants for engaging with us today and attending. If you like this, we do this every Tuesday at 4 o'clock Eastern, 1 p.m. Phoenix this time of year. And so every Tuesday on that, join us. If you like this, please come back, send us comments on what again, my email is tim@wellnesswaveclub.com. If you've got topics you'd like to have addressed, people you'd like to see participate or reach out to sort of help spread their message, as I've done things for you, please let us know. And next week, so last week we took you through kind of all the various types of toxins to be aware of. This week, talked about how do you minimize your exposure to those and address some of the areas of that. Next week, we want to show you again, if the toxins get through to your body, what are some ways that then you can start eliminating them from your body, and approaches and tools and techniques and products you can use to do that. So thank you. And until we see you again, good wellness.